Growing into a leader who is worth following takes work, practice, a lot of thought, and mentors who can help along the way. Hi, I'm Mark Legvold, lead consultant for Roots to Sky Consulting. This is Worth Following Weekly, 5 minutes of mentoring on the skills you need to become a leader who is worth following. We've been learning over the last few weeks about having hard conversations. While they're never something that people really love doing as a part of leadership, they're critical in not only maintaining the standards we need to enforce to keep the workplace safe and productive, but they're also a key tool in your toolbox as a leader to build relationships and a workplace culture where people feel cared about and respected. At the end of last week's episode, I mentioned a subtle part of leadership that many people forget about: following up after a hard conversation. Ever have that feeling after you've received a hard conversation from your boss, like they're still angry with you, or at least still harboring some strong feelings about what they talked with you about? How did that make you feel as a part of that team? Like I've said, nobody leaves all their feelings and emotions in the parking lot when they show up to work. And as a leader, you need to recognize that. But it's also true that nobody leaves all their emotions and feelings in the office after a hard conversation. That can be a troublesome thing, leaving folks distracted, upset, disengaged, or even motivated to leave. The last step of a hard conversation is to demonstrate organizational and personal grace. I had a team member who I supervised quite some time ago. They had been led by people who had used the hard conversations they had had as a lever of power, always leaving this person watching their back and reminding them of past mistakes constantly. That was how the supervisors kept power. The problem was that this person became self limiting, self conscious, and was inhibited in their own ability to lead well. When I took on the role of this person's supervisor, I recall the first hard conversation we had to have. I had a solid, firm plan, starting with first statements, informing them of what they were responsible for, reminding them of the regulations, and then I made it matter at the end. I thought it went pretty well, but the next day we worked together, I noticed their demeanor had changed. Their body language was tight and closed off, no eye contact, and very few words were spoken. I waited until we were into our workday and stopped in at their workstation to check in, starting with just, "Hi, I just wanted to follow up and make sure we're okay." And I accentuated the we. That's when I learned about this person's past and how much had been held over their head. Now, being new to the supervising position with this person, we weren't as deep in our working relationship as I would have preferred. This happens, but it was a great opportunity to teach them about my philosophy on leadership and a term I called organizational grace. I explained the damage within an organization if people keep score constantly and work to remind people of their past mistakes. Creativity is stifled, paranoia within the workforce is built, a culture of vindictiveness is created. These are poison to an organization, and worse yet, they're toxic to people. Instead, as I explained, I believe in grace. Now, grace isn't forgetfulness. We had a hard conversation, and I didn't forget what brought us there. But as I said when we ended the conversation, I believe in you, I trust in you to improve, and I rely on the good things you bring to the team. So we're going to grow together from there. And we're going to show each other that we trust one another to grow from mistakes without fear of it hurting our relationship or our ability to learn. Organizational grace is when the ability of workers, all levels, learn to trust one another, learn from mistakes, and grow closer through difficulty. It starts to permeate the relationships of everyone within the organization the more it is practiced. So here's a challenge and a couple tips. Challenge yourself within the week to circle back with anyone you've had a tough conversation with in the past, where you've noticed a relational difference. If they're more closed off, distant, or have become corporately cold, circle back and build the relationship back up. Don't ignore that the hard conversation happened. Acknowledge it and use it as a relationship builder. Thank them for the growth and remind them of their importance. This works both up and down the organizational hierarchy. If you're struggling with how to start, here's a couple starters. Start with your daily greeting, even if you haven't received one in quite a while from this person. Read the room, and if there's something different in their demeanor still, recognize it, make a point to talk it through. Send an email thank you with an acknowledgement of their importance to the team. And yes, when you get hard feedback, it's important to follow up with the thank you. That person cared enough to give you hard feedback. They just want you to grow. Or just stop in and start a conversation. Remind them of the value of grace in the workplace and that moving forward means moving through the tough emotions. People who have strong emotions about their work own what they do, and that's a good thing. So, working through it together makes everyone stronger. Next week on Worth Following Weekly, we'll dive deeper into how and why follow up and follow through will make more people want to follow you. We'll see you next week.